This story is titled, My Adopted Sister Falsely Accused Me of SA. 7 years later, the truth is out and now they're begging for my help. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Before I get into the meat of this shit show, you need to know where I was coming from. I, 28 male, grew up in what I thought was a solid family. Upper middle class neighborhood in the suburbs of Chicago. My parents seemed to have their shit together, at least on the surface. Dad was a financial advisor at a prestigious firm downtown, made good money that afforded us a comfortable lifestyle. Mom worked part-time as a realtor, but mostly focused on what she called maintaining the family image, which basically meant being involved in every community organization possible and making sure our family looked perfect on Christmas cards. I was their biological son, the golden boy who did everything right. Straight A's without much effort, naturally athletic, polite to adults. I wasn't perfect by any means. Got into my share of trouble as a teenager, sneaking beers with friends, the occasional party that got too loud, but nothing serious. Nothing that would tarnish the family reputation my mom worked so hard to maintain. When I was 10, they adopted Lily, 3F at the time, because mom always wanted a daughter. I remember the day they brought her home. Tiny little thing with these big brown eyes that had everyone wrapped around her finger within minutes. And I'll admit, I was kind of a dick to her at first. Suddenly, I wasn't the center of attention anymore. Everything was about Lily. Lily's first day of preschool. Lily's dance recital. Lily's cute new outfit. Looking back, it was normal sibling jealousy, but at the time it felt like I was being replaced. As we grew up, I thought we developed a decent sibling relationship. Nothing special, but normal. We fought sometimes, but I always looked out for her. When she was in second grade, some kid kept pulling her hair and pushing her on the playground. I was in ninth grade by then, and I remember walking her to elementary school one day and having a very clear conversation with the little punk. No one messed with her after that. I even taught her to defend herself. Basic stuff like how to throw a proper punch if she absolutely needed to. I was her big brother, you know? By my senior year of college, I was killing it. Captain of our Division II baseball team with serious prospects for at least minor league ball. Had a 3.85 GPA in business administration with a minor in finance. Had a solid group of friends. The kind of guys who would help you move or pick you up at 3 a.m. if your car broke down. And I spent a lot of time in the gym. Had been lifting seriously since high school. And by college, I was in the best shape of my life. Bench pressing 315 for reps, squatting 405, deadlifting 495. Had that V-taper everyone works for. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, visible abs year-round. Not trying to sound conceited here, just painting the picture of where I was at in life. I dated a few girls seriously over the years, but nothing that stuck. Was mostly focused on my future, to be honest. Dad had connections at several investment firms in Chicago, and I was set to enter a management training program at one of the big ones after graduation. My path was clear. Finish school strong, maybe play ball for a couple more years if I got the chance, then settle into a career in finance. Eventually find the right girl, get married, have kids, the whole American dream package. That was the plan anyway. Lily was 15 by then, a sophomore in high school. She'd grown into this artsy theater kid, always in some school play, always dramatically overreacting to everything. But that's teenagers for you. She had her own friends, her own life. We'd grab dinner together when I was home from college on breaks, catch up on life. Normal sibling stuff, or so I thought. Looking back, there were signs I missed. How she'd get jealous when mom and dad bragged about my baseball achievements. How she'd make little comments about how easy I had it. How she'd sometimes make up elaborate stories about things that happened at school that couldn't possibly be true. But hindsight's 20/20, right? It was a Tuesday in October of my senior year. Just finished a brutal practice where coach ran us into the ground after we'd lost a weekend series to our biggest rivals. My legs felt like jelly. My shoulder was sore from too many bullpen sessions, but in that good way, you know? Like you pushed your body to its limits, and it responded. Hit the showers, changed into jeans and a hoodie, and checked my phone on the way out to my truck. A used F-150 my parents had helped me buy for my 20th birthday. Holy shit. 37 missed calls, 54 texts, messages like, "You sick fuck, how could you? You're dead," all from family members and family friends. My heart started racing immediately. My first thought was that someone had died, maybe grandma or grandpa. I called dad immediately. "What the hell is going on?" I asked when he answered. His voice was ice cold, something I'd never heard before. Get your ass home now. Don't you dare go anywhere else. Then he hung up. I stood there in the parking lot, staring at my phone, trying to make sense of what was happening. Called Mom. No answer. Called my best friend from high school who still lived near my parents. No answer from him either. It was like everyone had suddenly decided I was radioactive. I drove the 20 minutes home in a daze, my stomach in knots the whole way. NPR was on the radio, but I couldn't focus on a single word they were saying. Pulled into the driveway, and my Uncle Mike's truck was there along with several other cars. Uncle Mike was my dad's younger brother, a construction contractor with a temper who'd never really warmed up to me. Before I could even get out, Uncle Mike charged at me from the front porch, yanked open my truck door, grabbed me by my shirt, and slammed me against the side of the truck. I'm gonna fucking kill you, he screamed, his face inches from mine. His spit was hitting my face and I could smell beer on his breath. His eyes were wild, like nothing I'd ever seen before. I could have broken free easily. Mike was 50, out of shape, and I was a 22-year-old athlete in my prime. But I was too shocked to react. Dad and my other uncle, Steve, pulled him off me. Inside. Now, Dad ordered, not looking me in the eye. I walked up the front steps and into our living room. It was packed. Mom was on the couch, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Both sets of grandparents were there, looking grim. Aunts, uncles, even some close family friends. And Lily, my sister, was curled up against Grandma, sobbing into her shoulder. The room went dead silent when I walked in. Everyone was staring at me with this mix of horror and disgust that made my blood run cold. What the hell is happening? I demanded, looking around the room for any hint of what was going on. Mom looked up, her face twisted with rage and disgust I'd never seen before. How could you? Your own sister. What are you talking about? I was genuinely confused, looking from face to face for some explanation. Dad stepped forward, his normally composed financial advisor demeanor completely gone. He looked like he wanted to tear me apart with his bare hands. Lily told us everything about how you've been coming into her room at night for years. The accusation hit me like a freight train. I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning. What? That's insane. I never touched her. Lily was sobbing harder now. You said no one would believe me. You said you'd hurt me if I told. You said it was our secret. That's fucking bullshit, I yelled, the shock giving way to anger. I've never said that. I've never done anything to her. What the fuck is going on? Uncle Mike lunged at me again, but was held back by Dad and Uncle Steve. My buddy's a cop. You're going to prison, you piece of shit. They're gonna love you in there. I tried to defend myself, tried to make them see how ridiculous this was, but it was like talking to a brick wall. No one was listening. Lily kept remembering more details, making up shit that never happened. Said I first touched her when she was 10, and I was home from high school for Christmas break. Said it had happened dozens of times since then. Said I threatened to hurt her, to hurt Mom and Dad if she ever told anyone. Every word out of her mouth was a complete fabrication, but they were all nodding, consoling her, glaring at me. It was surreal, like I'd stepped into some alternate universe where everything was backward. Then Dad snapped. He'd always been controlled, never violent. But something broke in him. He walked right up and hit me with a right hook that would make heavyweight boxers proud. Caught me square in the jaw and I went down, tasting blood where my teeth had cut into my cheek. Get your things and get out. You're no son of mine, he said, standing over me, flexing his hand. Mom had already packed some of my clothes in trash bags. They were by the door. Dad grabbed my wallet, took out all the cards with his name on them, credit cards, health insurance, everything. Dad, please, this isn't true, I begged, blood dripping from my split lip. You've known me my whole life. You know I would never do something like this. He grabbed me by my shirt, dragged me to the door, and literally threw me down the front steps. I landed hard on my shoulder, feeling something pop that would later turn out to be a minor separation. The bags of clothes followed, then my baseball gear. If you ever come near this family again, I'll kill you myself, he said, then slammed the door. I sat there on the lawn, blood on my face, shoulder throbbing, neighbors peeking through windows at the commotion. My entire life had just imploded in less than an hour. I spent that night in my truck in the baseball field parking lot, trying to process what had happened. Couldn't sleep. Kept replaying the scene over and over, trying to understand how Lily could do this, how my parents could believe her without even questioning it. By morning, my jaw was swollen and purple, and my shoulder hurt so bad I could barely move my arm. Called a teammate, Ryan, who let me crash on his couch for a week. His roommates weren't thrilled about it, but they tolerated me. I tried calling, texting, emailing everyone in my family. My grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had known me my entire life. No responses except one text from Dad. Contact us again, and I'm filing a restraining order. You're dead to us. Ryan tried to help. Dude, you need to go to the police. File a report about your dad hitting you. Get ahead of this thing. But I couldn't. Something in me couldn't accept that this was really happening. Kept thinking my parents would come to their senses, realize how insane this all was. And honestly, I was scared. What if Lily didn't back down? What if they believed her over me? How would I prove a negative? That I didn't do something? 2 weeks later, I got an email from the university. My tuition payment for the semester was overdue. My parents had canceled it midterm. I went to the financial aid office, tried to get emergency loans, but without a cosigner and with barely any credit history, I was fucked. Had to drop most of my classes to part-time status so I could work full-time to afford even that. Coach was understanding at first. Let me stay on the team, but I missed so many practices because of my new job working security at a bar that I barely played. My grades tanked, went from dean's list to barely passing. Friends started avoiding me because rumors were spreading. Someone in the family had told someone, who told someone else. You know how it goes. Nobody called me a predator to my face, but I saw how people looked at me, how conversations stopped when I entered rooms, how girls would move away if I sat near them in class. 4 months later, my truck broke down. Cracked engine block, thousands to repair. Couldn't afford it. Lost my delivery job that I'd picked up on top of the bar security gig. Got evicted from the shitty apartment I'd been renting with 2 other guys because I couldn't make rent. Started sleeping in the baseball team's equipment shed because coach gave me the code. Taking showers in the locker room. Eating 1 meal a day at the cafeteria with the last of my meal plan. Coach found me there one night in February, below freezing outside, and I was bundled in 3 hoodies and a sleeping bag, using my duffel bag as a pillow. Instead of being pissed, he sat down next to me on the floor. Son, what the hell happened to you? He asked, genuine concern in his voice. I told him everything. The accusation, my parents' reaction, being cut off, losing my truck, the apartment. He was the first person who actually listened to the whole story. When I finished, he didn't say I was lying. Didn't say he believed me either. Just nodded and sat there in silence for a minute. You can stay here until the end of the semester. After that, I'll help you figure something out. He brought me a space heater the next day and a proper air mattress. Started inviting me to dinner at his house once a week. His wife always packed leftovers for me to take home. It wasn't much, but it was something. Someone giving a shit. I managed to finish the year with a 2.1 GPA, barely avoiding academic probation. But I was done with baseball. The fire was gone. Coach hooked me up with a summer job at a wilderness program for troubled teens in Colorado. Ironic, right? But it paid cash, provided housing in a staff cabin, and kept me fed. That fall, I didn't go back to school. Stayed at the wilderness program, became a full-time guide. Spent days hiking mountains, teaching survival skills to rich kids whose parents didn't know what else to do with them. Built myself back up physically. The work was demanding. Carrying 50-pound packs up mountains, chopping wood, building shelters. Put on 15 pounds of pure muscle in 6 months. At night, I'd get blackout drunk with the other guides. On days off, I experimented with anything I could get my hands on. Weed, acid, shrooms, coke. Wasn't careful. Didn't care. Was trying to numb myself to the reality that my old life was gone forever. After a guide died in a climbing accident that I probably could have prevented if I hadn't been nursing a hangover, the program director pulled me aside. Jake, you're one of our best guides when you're on. The kids respect you. You know your shit in the field, but you're a liability when you're like this. I can't have you responsible for kids' lives when you're self-destructing. Got fired the next day. Spent the next year living out of my new beater car, a 1998 Honda Civic I bought for $1,200 cash. Worked whatever jobs I could find. Bouncer at bars, security at events, day labor construction. Any job where I could use my size and nobody asked too many questions about my background. I avoided women completely. Avoided families. Would literally walk out of restaurants if a kid sat too close to my table. The fear of being accused again was paralyzing. Had nightmares where I was in prison. Other inmates finding out what I was in for. Would wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. One night, I was working security at a college bar in Fort Collins. Recognized a guy from my old university. He'd been on the football team while I was there. He recognized me too. Started telling his friends who I was, what I'd supposedly done. By closing time, they were all giving me looks. Making comments just loud enough for me to hear. Fucking predator. Sick fuck. Someone should teach him a lesson. I tried to ignore it, did my job, escorted the last patrons out at 2 a.m. Was walking to my car when I got jumped in the parking lot. 3 guys from earlier. They'd been waiting. Called me a pedophile, a predator. Said they were going to make sure I couldn't hurt anyone else. I fought back, landed some solid punches, broke one guy's nose for sure. But it was 3 against 1, and they had the element of surprise. Ended up with 3 broken ribs, a fractured eye socket, dislocated shoulder, and a concussion. Guy with the broken nose must have freaked out because they ran off when a car pulled into the lot. The driver called an ambulance. Spent 2 nights in the hospital, then released with no place to go, no health insurance, and a $17,000 medical bill I had no way of paying. The painkillers they gave me barely touched the pain. Couldn't work with my injuries. Slept in my car in Walmart parking lots, taking sponge baths in gas station bathrooms when I could manage to lift my arms. I decided I was done. Just fucking done. It was raining. Middle of the night. I drove to this old bridge outside town, high enough that jumping would definitely do the job. Parked my Civic, walked to the middle, climbed over the railing. My ribs screamed in pain with every movement. Stood there for I don't know how long, rain soaking me, staring down at the dark water. My phone was in my hand. No messages, no calls. For 3 years, absolute silence from my family. No one was coming to save me. No one cared if I lived or died. Bit cold for a swim, don't you think? The voice startled me so bad I almost slipped. I grabbed the railing with my good arm, pain shooting through my broken ribs. Turned to see an old man, had to be in his 70s, standing there in a rain jacket with a fishing pole in his hand. "Go away," I said, my voice hoarse. "Can't do that, son," he replied calmly, like we were just having a normal conversation on a sunny day. "See, if I go away and you jump, that makes me responsible in a way. It's not your problem. Became my problem when I saw you. That's how life works." He moved closer, not threatening, just steady. "My name's Frank, retired Marine Corps. Seen plenty of men at their breaking point. You want to tell me what's got you standing on the wrong side of this railing? You wouldn't understand. Try me." I don't know why, but I told him. Everything. The accusation. Being thrown out. The last 3 years. Maybe because I figured I'd be dead soon anyway. Maybe because he was a stranger who didn't immediately look at me like I was a monster. Maybe because something in his eyes reminded me of my grandfather, the only person in my family who might have believed me if he wasn't suffering from dementia. When I finished, he just nodded, exactly like my old coach had. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Son, you've been carrying this alone long enough. Put down the weight for one night. Come have a hot meal, dry clothes, and we'll talk about it with clear heads tomorrow. Why would you help someone like me? You don't know if I'm telling the truth." Frank's eyes were sharp, even in the dim light. "Been reading men's faces for 50 years in combat and in peace. You're either telling the truth or you're the best damn liar I've ever met. Either way, dead is permanent. Food isn't." I could have ignored him. Could have jumped anyway. Some days I wonder why I didn't. But something about his certainty, his calm in the face of my storm, made me climb back over that railing. Frank's house was small but immaculate. Military precision in everything. Books aligned perfectly on shelves. Shoes exactly parallel by the door. He gave me dry clothes that had belonged to his son who had died in Afghanistan 10 years earlier. Made me take a hot shower while he cooked. That night, I slept on Frank's couch. Actually slept, for the first time in what felt like years. Next morning, he made me breakfast. Eggs, bacon, coffee so strong it could wake the dead. Then he offered me a job. Said he owned a small security firm that did executive protection, event security, and some specialized work for wealthy clients. Needed a young, strong guy who could take orders and keep his mouth shut. "Why would you trust me with something like that?" I asked. "You just met me. I was about to kill myself." Frank looked me dead in the eye. "Because a man pushed to the edge who chooses to step back has something worth living for, even if he doesn't know it yet. And because if you screw me over, I know exactly how to find you." For the next 6 months, I lived in Frank's guest room, worked for his company. He was a hard ass. 5 a.m. workouts, strict rules, no drinking on work nights. Made me go to the doctor for my injuries, paid the bills himself, saying I could pay him back when I was on my feet. But he was fair. Paid me well. Taught me about finance, investing, how to dress and talk to clients, how to be professional again. He also made me see a therapist, an old Vietnam vet buddy of his, who specialized in PTSD. I resisted at first, but Frank wasn't taking no for an answer. "You got your bell rung, son. Not just physically. Need to get your head straight if you're going to work for me." The therapy helped, slowly. taught me that what happened wasn't my fault, that I didn't deserve it, that I wasn't broken beyond repair. I saved enough for my own place after 6 months. A small apartment, nothing fancy, but mine. Clean, safe, started taking classes at the community college, business management, plus some specialized security certifications. Frank became like the father I'd lost. He never pushed me to contact my family, never suggested I try to clear my name. He just said, some battles aren't worth fighting. Focus on the war, building a life they can't take away from you. A year into working for Frank, he sent me to handle security for his niece's art gallery opening. Said it was a favor to his sister, but I know now he was playing matchmaker. Sophie was nothing like I expected. Frank had described her as smart as a whip and doesn't take shit from anyone, which was accurate but incomplete. She was beautiful in this unconventional way. Tall, athletic, with these intense green eyes that seemed to look right through you. Dark hair cut in this asymmetrical style that somehow perfectly framed her face. Not conventionally pretty in a magazine cover way, but striking. The kind of woman who commands attention just by existing. We didn't hit it off at first. She thought I was just some muscle-bound security guy with no brain. I thought she was a stuck-up art snob. During the event, I overheard her explaining some abstract painting to a potential buyer, rolling her eyes when they walked away without purchasing. Not everyone gets it, I said, not really meaning to start a conversation. She looked me up and down, taking in my security uniform. And you do? Number. But I'm not pretending to either. She almost smiled. Almost. Honesty. Refreshing. Throughout the night, I caught her watching me. Not in a make sure the security guy isn't stealing anything way, but with curiosity. I was doing my job, scanning the room, watching the doors, keeping an eye on the more expensive pieces. Professional, alert, but unobtrusive. At the end of the night, as I was doing final checks and the last guests were leaving, she approached me. So, Uncle Frank says you're more than just the muscle. Your uncle talks too much, I replied. She laughed. It was a good laugh. Genuine, not the fake social laugh I'd heard all night. Actually, he barely talks at all, which is why when he does, people listen. He says you're going to school. Business management? Yeah. Plus some specialized security certifications. Interesting combination. Tell me about it. We talked until 2 a.m. About everything except my past. She was smart, funny, challenging in all the right ways. Had traveled extensively, had strong opinions about art and politics and music, but listened to my perspectives too. When I finally said I needed to go because I had an early training session with a new client, she handed me her card. I have a security issue at my condo. Locks need upgrading. Maybe you could give me a consultation? It was a transparent excuse, but I took it. That consultation turned into dinner, which turned into movie nights, which turned into weekends together. Sophie was like no one I'd ever dated. Fiercely independent, passionate about her work, but vulnerable in quiet moments. She'd been hurt too. Not the same way as me, but pain recognizes pain. For months, I avoided talking about my family, made up vague stories when she asked, said my parents had passed away in a car accident, that I was an only child. Sophie knew I was hiding something but didn't push. Frank, though, told me I needed to come clean. That girl is falling for you, he said one day at work as we were planning security for an upcoming event. And you're falling for her. She deserves the truth before it goes any further. He was right. So one night over dinner at my apartment, I told her everything, the whole ugly story. Expected her to leave, to look at me differently, to have that seed of doubt that maybe, just maybe, Lily hadn't been lying. Instead, she took my hand across the table and said, "Thank you for trusting me. I believe you." 3 simple words I hadn't heard from anyone except Frank. I broke down right there at the dinner table, sobbing like a child. She just held me, letting me get it all out. 2 years after we met, I proposed. Did it right, down on one knee in the spot where we'd had our first real date, ring in hand, heart pounding like crazy. Frank walked her down the aisle since her own father had died years before. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood, started building a real life. I finished my degree, became a partner in Frank's firm. We expanded from local security to regional, then national contracts. Developed a reputation for professionalism and discretion. Sophie's art career took off. Her work started appearing in major galleries, commanding impressive prices. We were talking about starting a family. I was finally happy, finally at peace. The nightmares were less frequent. I could be around children without panicking. Had even reconnected with a few old friends from college, who'd reached out after hearing snippets of the real story through mutual acquaintances. My old life felt distant, like it had happened to someone else. I still thought about my family sometimes, wondered if they ever doubted Lily's story. if they ever regretted what they'd done. But I had accepted that chapter was closed. I had a new family now, people who chose me, who stood by me. That was enough, or so I thought. It was a random Tuesday in March. I was in my office reviewing security protocols for an upcoming client event, a billionaire tech CEO visiting for a conference who needed discreet protection. My assistant buzzed me on the intercom. "Sir, you have a call on line 1. Woman wouldn't give her name, but says it's a family emergency." My first thought was Sophie or Frank. "Put her through." I picked up the receiver. "Hello, this is Jake." Not my real name, obviously. Silence. Then a sob. "Jake? It's Mom." My body went cold. I hadn't heard her voice in 7 years. I wanted to hang up, wanted to scream. Instead, I just said, "What do you want?" "Please don't hang up," she begged. "We need to talk to you. It's important." We haven't talked in 7 years. Nothing could be that important. My voice was ice. Lily confessed. She lied about everything. She made it all up. The world stopped. 7 years of pain, of rebuilding my life from nothing, of nightmares and panic attacks and therapy, all because of a lie. A lie I'd always known it was. But hearing her admit it, "Jake, are you there?" I hung up, walked out of my office, told my assistant to cancel my meetings, and drove to Frank's house. After I told him, he just nodded and said, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You just don't know if it's the right thing." He was right. Part of me wanted to ignore them, keep them cut out of my life forever. Another part needed answers, needed to hear the truth admitted to my face. Sophie felt the same when I told her that night. "You need closure," she said. "But whatever you decide, I'm with you. And Jake, this doesn't change anything between us. I'm still here, no matter what." For 2 weeks, I ignored the calls and texts that started flooding in. From Mom, from Dad, even from relatives who had shut me out years ago. Talked it through with my therapist. Yes, I have one. Not ashamed to admit it. Finally decided I needed to face them, but on my terms. I texted my mother. Public place. Coffee shop on Main Street. Sunday, 2 p.m. Just you, Dad, and Lily. I'll have people with me. One chance only. Sunday came. Frank insisted on coming as backup. Sophie was by my side, gripping my hand so tight it almost hurt. We got there early, took a table in the corner where I could see all entrances and exits. Old security habit that never goes away. My stomach was in knots. Part of me still expected them not to show, or for this to be some elaborate trap. Sophie kept checking on me, her eyes full of concern. "We can leave anytime, okay? Just say the word." They arrived exactly at 2. Mom looked older than I remembered, hair more gray than brown now, face lined with stress. Dad had lost weight, almost gone, his expensive suits replaced by khakis and a button-down that had seen better days. Lily, now 22, looked completely different from the teenager I remembered. Her face was thinner, her eyes downcast. None of the dramatic flair she'd always had. Mom saw me first. Her eyes filled with tears, and she rushed forward, arms outstretched for a hug. I stepped back, putting Sophie slightly between us. "Sit." No one spoke for what felt like minutes. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "Son, I'm not your son." I cut him off. "You made that very clear 7 years ago. Now talk. Why am I here?" Mom started crying. Dad looked broken. Lily still stared at the floor. 3 months ago, Dad began, his voice rough. "Lily called a family meeting. She told us that she had lied. About everything." I looked at Lily. "Look at me." Slowly, she raised her eyes. They were red from crying. "Why?" My voice didn't even sound like my own. She took a shaky breath. "I was jealous. You were the perfect son. Star athlete, smart. Everyone loved you. Mom and Dad gave you everything. I wanted them to love me more, to pay attention to me. So you accused me of something that could have sent me to prison? Destroyed my entire life?" The anger I thought I'd processed years ago came rushing back. "I didn't think it would go that far," she whispered. "I thought they'd just get mad at you, maybe ground you. But then everyone started asking questions, and I couldn't take it back. And then it just kept going. Everyone was being so nice to me, giving me things, making me feel special. I didn't know how to stop it. And you two," I looked at my parents, "you threw me out without even listening to me, without any proof." Dad tried to explain. "We thought we were protecting her. She was our little girl, and I was your son." I slammed my hand on the table. The whole coffee shop went quiet. People at nearby tables pretended not to listen, but they were all ears. I wasn't even home for the 4th of July weekend she claimed it happened. I was at a baseball tournament in Denver. There were pictures all over social media. "Did you even check?" Mom put her hand over her mouth. Dad went pale. You know what happened after you threw me out? My truck broke down. I lost my apartment. I slept in the baseball equipment shed. I almost died from exposure, from being beaten up by people who heard rumors. I stood on a bridge ready to jump because the family who was supposed to love me believed the worst without a single question. I pulled out my phone, showed them pictures. Me with my black eye and split lip from the bar fight. Me looking emaciated during my homeless period. My hospital records from the beating. I was your son! My voice broke. Sophie squeezed my hand. Frank put his hand on my shoulder, grounding me. We're so sorry, Mom sobbed. We made a terrible mistake. We want to make it right. Make it right? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. How exactly do you plan to do that? Give me back 7 years of my life? Erase the nightmares? Undo the trauma of being homeless? Of being beaten? Of standing on that bridge ready to die? Mom was full-on sobbing now. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. We want you to come home, Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. We want our family back together. That's not happening. I have a family now. I looked at Sophie and Frank, people who actually stood by me. Lily finally spoke up. There's something else you should know. She told me how after her confession, everything changed. My parents had cut her off financially, took away the car they'd bought her for her 16th birthday, a fucking BMW while I was sleeping in my truck, and sold it. She had to drop out of her expensive private university and work retail while taking night classes at community college. Dad's company had suffered after some bad investments, and they had to downsize from their big house to a condo. Mom's social standing in the community was ruined when word got out about Lily's lie. We need your help, Jake, Mom admitted finally, looking ashamed. Your father's business is struggling. We're going to lose the condo. Lily can't afford to continue school. We've had to sell almost everything. And there it was. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted money. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. Let me get this straight. You destroy my life, disown me, leave me homeless. And now that I've managed to build a successful life despite you, you want me to bail you out? We're family, Dad said weakly. Number. We're not. I stood up. You made your choice 7 years ago. Now you can live with it. Please, Lily begged, tears streaming down her face. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but Mom and Dad shouldn't suffer for my mistake. You're right. They should suffer for their mistake. I looked at my parents. I forgive Lily. She was a child who made a terrible choice. But you two were adults who should have protected both your children. Instead, you threw one away without a second thought. I put money on the table for our coffee. As we were leaving, Mom grabbed my arm. Please don't leave it like this. What can we do? What do you want from us? I looked at her for a long moment. I want you to remember how it feels to have everything taken away, to feel helpless, to have no one believe in you. Maybe then you'll understand what you did to me. Sophie, Frank, and I walked out. As we reached the car, Frank squeezed my shoulder. Proud of you, son. That was 2 years ago. I've heard through mutual connections that my parents lost the condo. Dad works at a big box store now. Mom cleans houses. Lily dropped out of school completely and moved to another state. Sometimes I think about reaching out. Sophie says that would be the final step in my healing. Forgiveness not for their sake, but for mine. Frank says it's my choice and he'll back me either way. For now, I'm focusing on my own family. Sophie is pregnant with our first child. We're expanding the security firm into 3 new states, building something real that can't be taken away. Edit 2. To answer some common questions. Yes, I've considered pressing charges against Lily for false accusations, but the statute of limitations has passed in my state. No, I don't feel bad about not helping my parents financially. They made their bed. And yes, Sophie is doing great with the pregnancy. Thanks for asking. Edit 3. A lot of you are saying I should help Lily since she was just a kid when this happened. Maybe you're right, but she was 15, not 5, old enough to know what she was doing. And she let me suffer for 7 years before coming clean. That said, I might reach out to her someday. Just not ready yet. Edit 4. For those asking if I'm going to let my parents meet their grandchild, I genuinely don't know. Will they be in the delivery room? Absolutely fucking not. Will they ever babysit? Hell no. But maybe supervised visits someday when I can be sure they won't poison my kid against me with more lies. And only if they get extensive therapy and take full responsibility. Edit 5. Some people are calling this story fake. Whatever. Believe what you want. Why would I make up something this fucked up? I came here to process and maybe help others who've been falsely accused, not for internet points. Edit 6. Thank you to everyone who shared similar stories in the comments. It helps knowing I'm not alone in this. And to the person who asked why I don't hate all women now, because I'm not an incel moron who thinks one person's actions define an entire gender. My wife is a woman, in case you missed that part of the story.